Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we're taking a look probably at the final game of Mystery, this time against Ethereal at the chess.com Computer Chess Championship. Mystery won fairly convincingly from Ethereal, but it was a good fight, and in this game we take a look at a very interesting draw in a very interesting nimzo-indian. How did this come about? So that was d4, knight f6, c4 e6, knight c3, bishop b4, queen c2, d5, a3, takes, and now b6. Still in the chess.com book there. These sort of lines, where white spends a little bit of time getting the bishop pair, avoiding any weakness to the pawn structure. When I was professional playing the queen c2 nimzo as white, really had the feeling that, with those two bishops, good pawn structure, all the long-term prospects were white, and that black should be trying straight away to play as actively as possible and really, make things happen before white got developed. So, for example, this was a game I had against Vladimir Tukmakov, knight c6, e3, e5, a very sharp line that we fought out to a draw in the end. Yeah, very, very sharp indeed. But somehow with the advent of engines, it sort of emerged that blacks play the activity, the dynamism that black has in return for that early concession of the two bishops. It does actually last quite a long way through the game. It's just that you've got to be a lot more accurate, and you've got to play well over a long period of time. But obviously with engine help, even human players can do that. So b6 is one of the moves. Castles has been the main move, really, and you see Vladimir Kramnik in particular has played a lot of games with this. The bishop comes to a6, so if white goes e3, you go bishop a6, you take on f1, stop white from castling, and black's been doing well enough to hold the draw there, basically. b6 has been played, and the chess.com book continues. C takes d5 and e takes d5. E takes d5 isn't black's best move, so already seeing a small inaccuracy thrown into the book there just to put black on the back foot. Knight e4 is a nice intermezzo, and the idea is that after queen c2 we can take on d5 with the pawn now, and if you go bishop f4 then we go c5, and including knight e4, queen c2 before has enabled black to protect this c5 pawn and play c5 quite quickly. And this is very, very sharp. The engines thought it's around equal, a little bit better for white, but not too bad. After e takes d5, bishop f4. Of course, if you go knight e4, then queen c7 can be played. The queen doesn't have to retreat back to c2. There are still a number of good moves for black here. Castles is quite interesting. For example, bishop c7, queen e7. Bishop f4, bishop a6. This was dragon against stockfish. Black's getting some quite nice play. Rook's coming to here. Knight's coming to here rather. Knight c6 to a5. A lot of counterplay can happen there, really. Another engine idea was, which I suggested, but I wasn't. I thought surely this isn't going to be any good. But the engines made it work. Castles, and then d4. Queen c7, queen d5, and you're just giving up lots of pawns and going for the attack. And Stockfish again made this work and held the draw against Dragon. So plenty of possibilities, but the chess.com final move of the book was the slightly irritating for black anyway. Knight a6, defends c7, threatens c5, but has a number of tactical problems, and this was where the game basically began. So, white's actually got a number of interesting ideas. The first thing is that queen c6 check obviously forks the king and the rook, and forces bishop d7. This is actually what Mystery went into. You can actually try and improve that by playing the move e4 in this position. The point is, if knight e4 we go check, bishop d7 and queen d5, and we're threatening two knights. And if knight f6, then we queen e5 check, and then we're going to take that bishop on a6. If you go d takes e4, then queen c6 check, bishop d7, queen b7, and there's just no way to defend that knight on a6. I'm attacking it with two pieces. So actually after e4, black would probably have to play castles. And then we go e5, queen e8, bishop e2, knight e4, queen b3, and yeah, black's position is a bit ropey here. I mean, d5 is hanging, this knight on a6 is bad, and we're also threatening f3 with this knight on e4 is going to be a little bit in trouble. So white's doing pretty well there, basically. It's not a great position for black at all. But queen c6 is also quite strong, and leads by force to quite a promising queenless middle game for white. So bishop d7, we go queen b7, queen c8, just to well, defend the knight on a6 there. Takes, e3, hitting the knight on a6. The knight goes back to b8, and now we play this move, rook c1. And we're attacking that pawn on c7, and it's a bit of a conundrum for black. I mean, if you play the move c6, then this knight on b8 is really, really passive. If you play the move c5, then, well, yeah, you know, a lot of dark squares are being weakened here. And, you know, yeah, you're going to end up, you know, either taking this pawn off, giving yourself an isolated pawn when white's got the two bishops, or you're going to be playing c4, and then, well, look at all those horrible dark squares that are weakened, and white, of course, has got the dark square bishop to exploit it. So it's definitely between, you know, slight to clear advantage this for white, and yeah, really potential for black for it all to go horribly wrong. And I was quite impressed by the way that Ethereal did this, because Ethereal didn't play this meekly at all, didn't just try and hold and whatever. It just really, you know, sort of thought, well, you know, got all of these queenside pawns, got a queenside pawn majority. I'm just going to activate it, try and make it happen, and we're going to try and force white to take action before white is, you know, completely ready. And, well, this actually didn't work out badly at all. So knight e2 was played, and now c4. Releasing the tension, always classically bad, you know, keep the tension in the centre. But that's not important for black. Black needs to activate that queenside majority. And you're not going to be able to do it whilst your pawn's on c5. Has to go to a protected square, and then we're going to try and move these pawns down, basically, and just drive white's pieces away with a big queenside push. So knight c3 played, and now a6. Maybe not 100% necessary, but you're going to have to go b5 later, and in this way, you know, you stop knight b5 if black goes knight c6. I mean, here knight b5 might be a little bit irritating, although probably in this position black can go castles and just say, yeah, you can't hurt me whatever you do with your knight. But yeah, still a6 is definitely a safer move. Bishop e2, knight c6, and now g4 from Mystery. Very sharp move here. So white's basically wants to undermine this pawn on d5. I mean, you want to go g4 to g5, chase the knight away from d5. This d5 pawn will fall. And yeah, the thing is, you know, black's queenside is very loose at the moment, and the likelihood is that if one pawn goes, maybe a couple of others will go as well. But h6 holds things together, and now this was an interesting moment actually, because in my Indian matches, you know, Stockfish and Dragon, they kind of wanted to go for the slow build-up, you know, and that's f3, b5, and now king f2, and this is a pretty nice plan, really. I mean, everything's nice and solid for white. You've got the two bishops, and white's got ideas of going h4, g5. Or maybe, you know, if managed to drive away this knight somehow, then maybe playing a move like e4 and just expanding in the centre. And this was pretty promising for white. Stockfish was winning a lot of games in, you know, from these types of positions. What Mystery does is very direct, very sharp, really, you know, really acting as if this is the moment. I can't afford to wait. It's got to happen now. And played the move h4, and after b5. Then bishop f3, and this is a very clever move. I mean, the point is that obviously if you play g5, hg, I can't go hg because of rook takes h1 check. So bishop f3 attacks the pawn on d5 and also protects the rook on h1. So now g4 to g5 really is a threat, and yeah, d5's under real pressure. And well, it looked pretty grim to me, actually, I have to say. But yeah, Ethereal starts playing really, really well here now. And yeah, a lot of moves that, yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have thought of. Or I can think of the moves, but to work out that they can form any sort of plan and give any sort of counterplay is kind of the challenge, I guess. And yeah, I'm not really confident that I would have thought of this, you know, even with a good long think. Because bishop g4 was played by Ethereal. So takes, and knight takes d5, and this is looking kind of serious. I mean, we've got ideas of going, rook to g1 here. This is definitely an idea. This knight on g4 is loose. There's the pawn on g7 behind it. We've got, a lovely pawn structure here in the center. I mean, d5, e4 can follow. Good dark squared bishop feels like, because there's all these dark squared weaknesses in black's position. And on top of that, if that wasn't enough, we've got this knight c7 takes a6, just picking up a pawn. And from a6, the knight's coming back to c5 after. Really, I mean, this, I'd really be thinking, wow, this is just really, over, basically. White's just winning here. In the pre-computer age, I could have finished my preparation here and said, easy win for white. What Ethereal does is amazing, actually. It's knight e7, check, king d7, knight a6, and then this move g5. G5, what is g5? The point is that Ethereal has spotted that actually this bishop on f4 it's a lovely piece, but it is kind of restricted by white's pawns. And there's just simply loads of ways for black to attack it. And those attacks are actually going to end up getting black plenty of counterplay. So, for example, if white were to take on g5 and then take here, I'm going to take on h8, I'll play f6. You can throw in knight c5, that's no problem. Bishop f4, and then I'm just going to check. King d2, takes, and knight f2. And yeah, okay, white is a pawn up, but black's pieces are very active. Knight d5 coming in. We've got this d3 square at times. Not going to be easy at all for white to win this. And yeah, the engine sort of thought that this was drawable in actual fact, not closer to a draw for black than to a win for white here. But bishop g3, what can be wrong with bishop g3? Just get the bishop out of the way. G5, just a blank basically, nothing behind it. But now knight f5 happens, and what is black threatening? Well, just knight takes g3, and then knight takes e3. Again, this bishop is in difficulties, and well, how are we going to defend it? We can also reverse the order and take on e3 first, and after fe take on g3. There's a lot of threats there. So what Mystery did was to go rook g1, and after g takes h4, bishop f4, and this looked like a very cunning sidestep. It really looked like, absorbing black's pressure and then just leaving black worse off. The more black struggles to make some activity, the worse black's position looks, because now you've got those doubled h pawns, 3 isolated pawns on the king side, the knight's hanging, and white's still got this glorious structure in the center. The knight's coming back to c5 here. Obviously white's going to win this in the end. Just too many weaknesses for black. But somehow Ethereal keeps it together. So king e2, knight f6. I was a bit surprised to see that one, but this knight is coming round to other pastures. King f3. And now knight d5, and great square for the knight, and again attacking this bishop on f4. So knight c5 check, king c6, and rook h1. And this basically summed up what I was thinking at the position just a few moves earlier. I mean, we've got this great center that's supporting the knight on c5. Now I've got these moves b3, a4 now just to undermine the queen side. And this rook on h1, it's attacking the pawn on h4. This knight is just pinned to f5. I mean, at some stage I'm going to be able to chase this one away. We'll have e4 at some stage. Yeah, just winning, right? I mean, how does even black make any counterplay? I didn't even see it. How can black really hit something as solid as this central structure? And Ethereal's next move, I mean, if you want to give yourself a good positional puzzle here, then maybe stop the video and take a look, because I thought this one was beautiful. It totally shocked me. And even when I saw the first move, I didn't understand that the aim was the second move. It was h5 now. h5. And after b3, undermining the pawn, that's where the business is, surely. Then this gorgeous move, rook g4. And what's the idea? Well, we're defending the pawn on h4, and we're also attacking this bishop on f4 again. Again, this unfortunate bishop. And we're threatening to take on f4 when d4 will be loose, or we're threatening to take on d4 when f4 will be loose. So that's quite amazing, but there's an even nicer point here in actual fact, because knight d3 was played by Mystery, and it looks absolutely awful for black. I mean, we're threatening this move knight e5, forking king and rook. We're unleashing the attack on the c4 pawn. The king's caught in the way. What's happening here? Well, there's still some tactics going on because black can play the move knight f4. Now, one thing I didn't understand was why couldn't I just go check and knight takes g4 here? You know, after hg, I just go king f4. Well, there's some tactics here. Knight d3, attacking the rook on c1. Knight f6, takes. Well, black's done all right, but isn't rather a lot hanging here. I mean, knight h5 is hanging. This pawn's attacked. I can't take, do anything with the pawn because c8 is... Oh, wait a minute. C takes b3, rook c8, b2 is possible. Because after knight e4 check, yes, we are going to get back to d2 to stop this, but then I just go king d7, and I'm going to attack the rook. Knight d2, king c8, and this position is actually winning for black. Well, with passed pawns on here and here, not too surprising, I guess. So that is an amazing tactic. I mean, that's how it all hangs together, really. But I mean, that's not the end of it, because after knight f4, well, I mean, after all, white's that dark square bishop was white's problem. That was the one that was causing all the problems. That's been exchanged, and black's still left with a plethora of weak pawns. What is this really going to survive? Well, knight d6 was played, a4, and black moves away. King b7, takes, and knight takes h5. Could have taken on h5 before, but the answer would have been the same. Wouldn't really matter. Just f5. And again, I mean, I was thinking, well, I mean, white's just a clear pawn up here. I mean, this has got to be winning, right? But the Indians were not amazingly enthusiastic for white. And indeed, yeah, Ethereal seemed to hold this with barely any problems. I mean, the amazing thing is, really, I mean, in a way, taking this pawn on h5 was kind of a mistake. Because, it just means that the black rook can support the pawn. And actually, this pawn can be pushed all the way. And when it's pushed all the way, it's going to restrict this rook on h1. And somehow, yeah, this structure is very solid, of course. But it's not sort of hard to do something. It's not very easy to do something with it. And what you're going to see is that basically white's going to be trying to have this rook tied down by this rook's pawn, be trying to do something with rook and knight, and just not really succeeding to really make something of it. And we're just going to be in some sort of standoff position. Yeah. Not obvious to me from here, I can tell you, but that's basically what happens. So, knight f6, rook g6, knight d5, and rook h8. Here we are. And after rook b1 check, king a7. Now, when I saw that I had to go here, I was really thinking, but this is terrible, right? Because, you can't, you'd rather move to the center, but then knight e7 check wins the rook. So you have to go to the side. I mean, aren't we even getting worried about mates here? Well, you might be if you could use both your rooks. But after a5, h2, you can't use both your rooks, because if this one moves, then h1 queen is coming in. And actually, black's counterplay is coming really fast here, because we're just threatening rook g1 already. It's amazing. But Mystery had a clever riposte here, knight b4, because, well, if we do anything like rook h3 check, rook h3 check, king e2, rook g1, then we've got knight c6 and rook b8 checkmate. If we try and be a little bit cleverer and just go rook g1, then knight c6, king a8, and rook h2 is still very clever. Rook h2 and rook b8 checkmate. So that is really, really bad. But okay, Ethereal went king a8, knight c6, and then this was a move that shocked me, I have to say. I mean, rook takes h2 is the threat, but just rook h6 here. So we're always keeping a rook on h8 now, so if rook h2, then rook h2. But I was sort of thinking, well, hasn't black been, forced into passivity here? I mean, rook g1, that was the key, and now you can't do that anymore. But it emerges that black has a trump card that had somehow completely fallen out of my vision here, because after d5, black can go c3. Yeah, we are threatening c2, we are threatening c1 afterwards. So king e2, c2, and knight b4. So, I mean, basically, white's not too worried if you go something like c1, because I'll take, you go h1, and then I'll take on d6, and yeah, this is looking pretty good, basically, for white. You're certainly not going to lose this as white, and well, with 3 pawns for the exchange, and very active pieces, you're probably just winning here. But rook c8 was played. We got a little bit of shuffling here, a few checks, and then white played the move rook c6 here, blocking, and after takes, check, king c7. But once again, you know, somehow black seems to be in time with all those loose pawns. Just seems to be in time, because we're threatening c1 queen again and then h1 queen. If we try and come here, then we've just got knight check and knight takes f2, and well, that's just going to be rather decisive. So actually white's got nothing better than knight takes c2, king c6. But now, you know, that it's sort of like you know, there's just been some sort of fog of war somehow. But now everything is cleared, and well, you just realise that actually, hey, wait a minute, white's only a pawn up, and there's that loose pawn on a5 there. And that one's going to get exchanged for this pawn on h2, isn't it? And then we're just going to have this position, rook, knight and 2 against rook, knight and 1. Well, what are the chances of that being a draw? Fairly high. Actually, extremely high, certainly for engines. So knight d4 check was played, king d5, a6 and rook h7. And we're just covering that, that pawn there. So knight b3 was played, knight e4, king f1, king c6. There are all sorts of ways of doing this, to be honest. This was felt like a sort of a slightly risky way, giving up the f pawn, but this move is quite nice here. Just rook f7, hitting the knight on f5 and the pawn on f2 beyond it. So after f3, rook takes f5, fe4, rook g5, check, king h2. Actually, the game ended in a draw here. I let the engines play out the game a bit more, but it turned out pretty unconvincing. They were so convinced that it was just an easy draw that they didn't really try very hard. Black's best plan probably is just to play king b5 and just make sure that you get your king across to the king side in front of the e pawn, and then doesn't matter how many e pawns you've got, it's not going to be a win. If you do something like rook c1, I can go rook g4 and then keep the king cut off, and then also take the pawn on e4 and take the pawn on e3 there. So yeah, that was the game. I hope you enjoyed that one. I mean, queenless middle games, when they happen at the TCEC, there's often a lot of cries of, oh no, the queens have come off. Well, if you're not too worried about the game ending possibly in a draw, then they can be very exciting. And I found this one really, really interesting. Particularly this moment here, you know, where you know, Mystery decided to force the pace. And then the moves that Ethereal found just somehow generating counterplay that I just had never believed was in the position, you know, just incredible. And yeah, you know, the fact that that in this position, you know, the whole leitmotif of Black's play was that this bishop on f4, this dark squared bishop, was always going to be in difficulties, and that Black could hit it with pawns, with knights, with rooks. You know, really, really impressive. And then this idea of you know, h5 made me laugh in delight, I have to say. b3, rook g4, you know, really just a gorgeous idea there. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoyed the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new book, Re-Engineering the Chess Classics, full of really amazing stuff, you know, stuff that's never been thought of, never been seen before. So, you know, do take a look at that one. And otherwise, you know, do stay tuned. I've got some more videos coming up on lots of different things. So hope to see you there again. Thanks very much for watching.